heard this really great quote, and I want to share with you and kind of process a little bit that you can arrive and not show up. You know, that sounds kind of like odd. Like, how do you arrive and still not show up, right? And what that means, and I want to talk about that from a mental health perspective. You can arrive at the knowledge that you need to make some changes and yet never show up for yourself in order to do them. You know, you can actually go through therapy. You can say all the right things, but if you don't do the work, you're not showing up for yourself. How are you showing up for yourself today? Not did you arrive, because see, those are the basic things. And we sometimes give ourselves participation awards in our own sense of wellness just because we arrived. But did we show up for ourselves? Did you show up? What does showing up actually look like? See, that's where the work is. Not did I buy the self-help books. Not did I call a therapist today. Not did I think about the change. No. And not that that's not important, because it is. But at some point, you got to stop at just arriving. And you got to show up for yourself. Because here you are congratulating yourself on breadcrumbs and missing out on the bread factory. Wellness is a continuum of change. Don't get stuck at the breadcrumbs. Don't get satiated with just breadcrumbs. You got a whole bread factory to get. So don't just arrive today. Show up.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Pub Experience. We have another great edition for y'all. We have Miss Billie Gilliam, and she's going to come and tell us about how I said like this out, y'all. We haven't recorded yet. She been hitting me and Steve over the head like with a ton of bricks with these gems she been dropping, y'all. Just diamond after diamond after diamond. So we're gonna talk about her amazing journey into her craft that she has a passion behind and is gifted to do. You ask me, you know. It sounds like you just just passionate about what you do. So without further ado, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, I am adjusting. So I recently had a death. I had to bury someone who was close to me. So I'm adjusting. It's probably a better word to say. I'm adjusting.
No, and we want to thank you once again for taking the time out with us or whatnot. So thank you for that. And let's start from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Cleveland born and raised?
Yes.
So
yes,
rep the hood. What hood you from?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I went to both Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights school system. So
nice.
I graduated from Shaker Heights High School, but went to Cleveland Heights for a good amount of my elementary school time. So yeah, JCU for John Carroll for grad school, and Cleveland State, which is dear to me for undergrad.
Shout out to Cleveland State.
Yes.
Yes, no. So let me ask you this: so growing up, were you that friend that people just open up to you and just unloaded on you?
You know what? Because I caught the bus to work when I used to work part-time when I was in school, and people would do that at the bus stops. You know, and they would just start talking to me and telling me things, and I had a natural curiosity about what motivated people.
Come on,
you know. And so I would watch people like people watch on the bus and just watch them interact and what motivates people. So I have always felt like this is something of I think the license just gave me credibility for who I was already. You know, so that's what I was saying.
Time out. We're not even 5 minutes in, just already. Come on, like, okay. I'm sorry, y'all. It's stuff like that because like you've been just jabbing. So I love how you just said that. That is so dope as you just said it, because it's so funny because I meet people all the time, and like some people they need the credibility or they need the license or they need that thing to not verify, but to like solidify what they already have inside of them. Some people need it, you know. You just exuberate that. So no, that's awesome.
And the license just gives me, you know, the state of Ohio says I'm allowed to do X, Y, Z. But honestly, it's kind of who I am
as a person.
I'm very much attracted to the field, and just has this odd attractiveness to brokenness and what and not just brokenness. It's also, I was just telling someone earlier at the repast I was at, that pain doesn't have to be wasted. The oil of pain doesn't have to be wasted, you know. And so that to me is something that has been attractive in working with people and recognizing that I cannot make your pain go away. I'm not even going to try it. I can't make it go away. What I can do though is help you integrate it into who you are, and not let the oil of that pain be wasted. We can figure out what to do with it, you know. Okay. And it's a whole thing. You know,
no. Because you know what? Because I want episode. We want to get to know you, the individual, but I also want to know your practice or your calling also. So I want to get into, because I'm just meeting you for the first time tonight, and I am grateful that I got a chance to meet you, because once again, the wisdom that you have is just phenomenal. And this, like I said, we're only 5 minutes of the episode, so I want to get a chance to know you as a person. So okay, so I'm guessing high school, you're in college or whatnot. Did you already know coming from high school, going to college, that you wanted to get into therapy?
I did. Actually, it was I would say my senior year in high school. I had took my first psychology class. It was the only one I had ever taken, and they got to talking about psychoanalysis, and it was intriguing. It was stuff that I wanted to know more, and it was understanding people's backstory, you know. And so when he took that class, I was like, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah,
this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do, you know. I remember he said, his name was Dr. Wheel, was my 12th grade teacher, and he said, your dog doesn't really love you. He said, he's only responding to stimulus response, and people were going all crazy and haywire about that whole concept. But I enjoy learning about that. I wanted to learn more, and it's interesting, like that whole, at first, you know, as you go in the field, things, your opinion shifts on things. You have to have some level of flexibility to allow for that. But at first I was like totally against some of the stuff he was saying. But now, as I've gotten older in the field, some stuff I'm like, okay, I can see that. I can see how we got there, you know. But yeah, since 12th grade, I knew like this is something I want to do, you know. But I had a natural curiosity about people and what motivate them. I used to, before things got crazy with 9/11, I would go to the airport and just watch people coming and going. And I could tell a lot by them coming and going. I can tell when people see each other and they hug each other and they're so
embrace
excited.
each other. Yeah.
That stuff is awesome to watch for me, you know. And then watching people leave, you can just tell a lot by their interactions and exchanges with each other.
No, that's good. That's good. So let me ask you this. On your journey into your profession, were there moments where you feel like this wasn't your calling, or you felt like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be? Were there ever moments like that, or it was just a process where you like it was flawless, like I went from this and this, and it was never any, not saying conflict per se, but there was never any hardship in me becoming a licensed professional?
There were some things I definitely, you know, have my own story, things that I had to go through. But I really want to highlight a point when we were in our internship, and they tell you to sit in front of a person, you know, and I'm looking, I can remember my first client, and I'm like, oh, that's a real whole human being. Like, he think I know something?
Yeah.
I was like,
you said you had a restaurant with you.
This is so irresponsible. You can't help them, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really humbling, because somebody's sitting across from you, and it is such an honor for somebody to want to give you their story. You know, because everybody is not privy to it.
Come on, Billy.
And people
people
give you their story.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know if I can handle this, you know, and it's a lot. And then knowing that you got to hold people's story while you got your own, you know. So it was those spaces that I had to kind of work through.
Yeah.
Like making sure I can hold space. I call it holding space. Making sure I can hold space for them. But then I have to hold space for me too, you know, which is not always easy to do.
So if y'all watch podcasts, y'all know I usually got my bell, right? My thing is let y'all know, y'all need to taking notes. I don't have it, but I hope y'all are taking notes, because she is dropping them gems. That is so powerful, Billie.
It is true.
So for my own little journey, I just want to say this, because I understand that more at 36 than I did previously in my life, because I'm divorced, right? And you understand that as like on the airplane, they tell you before you can try to help someone else, you got to put your own mask on, right?
Yep.
And you cannot help someone if you're bleeding yourself, right?
Yep.
So man, that is so powerful.
It is so true. It is so true. And you know, it's funny. I use a airplane analogy too, because I said usually we carry our luggage, right?
Yeah.
And it's really best to have a carry-on, because that's something you don't have to deal with a whole lot. But most people with their own trauma and their story have an 8-piece luggage set that they carry around. And you know, you usually go to the ticket person, and they gotta weigh it, and then it's like too much weight, and usually the stuff that's in people's luggage is not even theirs. It's not even their stuff. And so here's the thing: you carry that extra weight, and you still got to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's gonna cost you extra $50, extra $100 to take that on the plane with you. And they say, look, you either can pay the extra weight, or you could take it out of the bag.
Oh my goodness.
And that's where my role is to help people make a decision. You either can take that stuff out of your bag.
Yes.
Or you can carry it with you and pay
you.
the price. You know, and pay the price. And
Tell that episode, by the way, Steve. I know Steve is going back there, y'all. Steve is going.
And my favorite phrase for that is, sometimes you don't know the cost until after purchase, you know. And that's with a lot of stuff. So I try to slow a lot of things in my own self down so I can recognize the cost.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't always know. We don't soon.
You got buyer's remorse.
Yes. You're like, why do I have all these bags?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I know I'm going to at least have a carry-on because I got my own stuff, you know. But the goal was that had to come from an 8-piece luggage set of carrying other people's stuff.
Ooh-wee.
You know, and that's including your family background.
Yeah.
You carry that with you, and sometimes some stuff fits, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, so that's my role, is to help people look in their bag and say, "Do you really want that?
Yeah.
Is that yours? Or do you really think that? Or where did that come from? You know, what were you valuing at the time? You don't like that shirt no more? You ain't been in that place in 20 years. Throw that away." You know? Okay. So that's kind of what at least that's what it feels like to me.
That is you are just, man, what's this? This is 10 minutes episode. I gotta say, y'all, because I do a lot of episodes, I promise you. And like y'all don't be knowing. It be stuff going on. And I be needing episodes just like y'all be needing. I'm pretty sure y'all do. And she is speaking to me tonight. So thank you, by the way.
Oh no,
I gotta say, it's not too many times you get hit right off the bat, you know. But I appreciate it. Okay, so I do want to unpack because I want someone who's watching this episode, because I'm pretty sure it's a young man and young lady who's watching it, they want to learn a little bit more about, they want to become a licensed therapist. I just want to talk about your journey, but I do want to unpack some of the things that you know what's so crazy? I remember talking to my therapist. She was like, I have a therapist. I'm like, a therapist? Got a therapist? Like, hearing a doctor got a doctor, right?
Yep.
But I want to talk about just overall the things that, you know, that we don't understand that comes with the profession, because I think that we just assume, like you said, I love how you said it. You like, this person has someone in front of me. I feel the same way when certain things happen at work. Like, you really want me to, you know, be responsible for this amount of money, you know, but you do though. But I do want to talk about, okay, so you went to high school, you went through college, you're a licensed professional now. What was that journey first year in your profession?
What was it like? Oh my goodness. I think that, you know, and I feel bad. I don't want to say I feel bad, because it's part of my journey too, you know, that I was much too concrete. I don't think I was. I remember this one assessment I did with a lady, and I had to ask her these really traumatic questions about her sexual assault history, and I'm just asking the questions like I'm asking her favorite color, you know. And I looked up at her and I said, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying to you, you know, because I'm just doing my professional job. Yeah. But so now I couch questions in a very specific way. So when I know they're going to be traumatic and things like that. But that first year was definitely hard. I didn't have, people don't realize, my first class in grad school, he said, is an art and the science. The science you get taught in school, the art is you. Can't nobody teach you art. You gotta have that, and that has to develop.
Steve, you know? That's the title right there.
you gotta develop the art, and you'll have people who have been in the field just as long as I have. They might have the science, but they don't have the art. You know, and that's the difference between. That's like having knowledge and wisdom. Yeah, facts ain't always where it's at. Yeah. So wisdom is a little bit different. You know, and then you add revelation. That's a whole different story.
Yeah. No, Billie, come on now. Like, okay. This is good right here. I hope y'all taking notes, because like she is dropping bombs left and right. Okay, so with that being said, because I feel like anyone who first get out of training, you go by the book. It's a standard. Yes. You haven't got a chance, you haven't got a chance to get a feel for who you are in that field. So when you say your first year you were more by the book, more.
Yes, much more by the book, less self-aware,
And you know, I think some of the things that disturb me, and I've heard some people like I've worked with interns before, and you know, ask them kind of what their plans are, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to do your job by next year." I'm like, "But you shouldn't want to do my job. You shouldn't want to be in this position yet, because you gotta go through a whole process.
Yeah.
First. Just because you have the degree." I mean, the title is one thing, but there's all kinds of stuff behind the title, all kinds of experience, and there's a degree of self-awareness I had to have. And so the better awareness I had, the better I'm able to work with other people. But if you just, you know, you're, and no disrespect to people who are 22 and say the youth is, but there's some work you really got to do. And so when people say, oh, I want to be a director, but you haven't been in the field no more than 2 years, you know? There's some work you got to do. You know? There's some pain, there's some suffering, you know?
Yeah.
There's some suffering you gotta attend to.
Man.
You know? Other than that, you're not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
You're really not. I can spout out stuff that's going to be in the book, but I'm not going to be able to go through a process and walk with you. You know? So that's always, like I know people who go right out of grad school and go right to their doctorate. I mean, you can do it.
Yeah. It's possible.
It's possible. But there is something different by someone who has never been really done the work, and then they go to the doctorate, but then they're expected to have doctorate level experience, and they don't have it yet. You know, there is some suffering that we all have to, at least from my experience in doing this, there's some suffering I had to engage in, learning how to hold space for myself, learning how to work out my own stuff, and that took time.
Yeah.
And we have to give respect to process. People are so outcome focused that we don't give respect to process. Nobody wants to do process. Everybody wants outcome.
Yeah.
But don't nobody want process.
Don't nobody want to go through the process. I remember I was watching an interview. I can't remember the comedian name. I apologize because it was a great interview. But she was talking about how she was watching Jamie Foxx, and he came on stage and she asked him, like, how to become a good comedian like you. And she was real young at the time, and he literally told her, go out and go live life. And then decide to come in community because you haven't lived enough life yet to have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
We can talk about at your young age, right? And I love how you said that because how can you really talk to certain things if you haven't experienced it yourself?
Yeah.
In certain aspects, though, right? That's
well, what I usually say to that is like, okay, so I understand. So I haven't been through all different forms of loss, right? But I say I understand loss because I've experienced loss, and so I have to be able to tap in my experience of loss to understand your experience of loss.
Yeah.
But most people, if they're really young in the field, haven't really processed their experience of loss yet. You know, they don't know what it's like, and so they get uncomfortable in front of other people's loss. You know, they don't know really what to do. Don't know what to do with it. You know, and sometimes you're taught certain things in grad school. I had a client, just a new client I just got. She was telling me about her old therapist, and she said she kind of just parroted everything I said. I said, "Oh, reflections." I said, "I remember that class." I was like, "I know what she was taught. I know what she was taught.
You seen it for what it was."
I know what she was taught. I said, "Was she young?" She was young. She was like, "Yeah." I said, "So she just got out of grad school." I said, "So she's giving you science, but it's not. She's not giving you art. She's giving you science."
I'm gonna be using that. I'm gonna be my favorite line. Like, I see the science, no art though.
No art.
No, that's good right there. Okay, let me ask you this, because I love how you. Once again, we had a fabulous conversation off camera, but I did want to go back to this because I love how you said that from when you first started to where you are now, you are seeing more of us come into therapy.
Yes.
And I am a big advocate for therapy, especially among our black men, because I'll never forget my ex, and shout out to her. She's the one who said, "Hey, I think you should go to therapy." And I'm just being a typical black man. I'm like, I don't need no therapy. I go to the barbershop every week. The barber's my therapist. What you mean, right?
Right.
But man, I shout out to my therapist or whatnot. She is a fantastic black woman, and I've been to therapy before, and this is no how I say this. This is no how can I say this. I'm not talking down on the fact that my other therapists were of another nationality, but I feel like when you go to someone who doesn't like you, you have to kind of like gauge, or not even gauge, but have to explain to them how you feel in certain situations, because they don't understand where I'm coming from in a certain extent, right? And once I met her, I felt more comfortable. But it's funny because I joke around with her now. I remember my first 2 sessions, I was lying. I was just lying. I'm just like, I don't need therapy. I'm good. I'm fine. Right? It wasn't until like the 3rd session where I talked about something I went through, and she had told me something she had been through, it allowed me to let down my guard. And I was more comfortable to open up to her after that. And since then, I go once a month now. And I said all to say because, like, once again, I'm a big advocate, but I want to talk about the fact that you said you see more of us now.
Yes.
And why do you think that is?
Yes. Again, I have. I'm so appreciated to people who are like 35 and under. You know, I think they've helped normalize. And then I see certain celebrities and football players. People are talking about their mental health a lot more, and I have a great appreciation. I will also say, COVID pushed a lot of people into therapy. When you think about what happened, we were pushed in a position where we were isolated for long periods of time, and isolation and solitude are not the same thing. We were pushed in isolation, and then we were, or we were pushed in isolation with people that we were struggling with, you know? And so I think those things help, because now there's a shortage of therapists.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know
now.
that.
Yeah, there's a shortage now. It's hard to get a therapist on schedule because there's always a waiting list now.
Wow.
And don't let it be a therapist who's good. You're really going to struggle.
Oh my goodness.
To get in there. But the when I say younger individuals, not that older people are not going, because that is happening more now, a little bit trickling down the way. But that's not everybody's. I would say an average of probably around 35-ish that I'm seeing now, and especially, and I'm seeing more men. I'm seeing much more black men than what I've seen before.
Yeah.
But I think what I see in that, there's a difference in how we're defining weakness and vulnerability. We're defining that very differently. Historically, we had these statements, and I'm laughing because it's something I just said to my mom earlier. I said, these black people say for $500, like, don't be telling them people your business. But I get, historically, I actually get where that comes from.
Yeah.
Because, see, there was danger attached to it, but the problem is, as a group, we're maintaining coping skills that no longer are adaptive. They were adaptive then, but they're not adaptive now. So as a community, we still do that, and individually we do that.
Yeah.
We'll do things that worked in the past.
Yeah.
But that don't work. That don't work for this.
It served us back then. It's not serving us now.
It's not serving you now. So the one thing that kept you safe in the past is now detrimental. It's killing you today.
That is so many layers today. Like, oh my goodness.
So people don't realize, like, that tool ain't working no more. You need a new tool. What is that statement? Wine skin. The new wine you can't use. You can't use that no more.
Can't use no more.
But it was tried and true. But it made sense for that version of you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense for this version. And so I think that we're doing better as a group, redefining
what that means.
What a lot of things mean.
So let me ask you this, because social media, I love it and I hate it at the same time.
Yeah, me too.
And no, exactly, right? And like, I hear so many buzzwords. Like, I hear, oh, this guy or this woman, she a narcissist.
Oh, I knew he was going to say that word.
You know it.
And
now he be hearing like gas. Like, I'll be like, I feel like people using the wrong context, and it's just like, it's like just a buzzword. Like, you're gaslighting me. Do you know what gaslighting means?
Yeah.
You know what narcissism even means?
Do
you know what these terms mean? Like, you're using these words in such a vague and non-associative way to what they actually mean, to where they also lost their meaning.
Yeah. Yes.
And why do you think? And you being a freshman, why do you think more people are using these buzzwords?
The funny part is, narcissism is not a diagnostic. Let's start there. It's not even it's not something I would diagnose it with. It's not a diagnostic. It's just a thing that people are saying, but it's not something I'm going to see like F305 narcissism.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see that. I do think that we attach ourselves and we see things. So we have what I call a myopic experience. So myopia is, if you ever see horses that are like in Central Park and they got these like blinders on, wherever you see them, they're traveling with people. That's so they can't look left or right and they're not distracted, right? But the problem is, the world is not just that direction. There's all this other stuff that's missing. So when we have this myopic experience, we only focus on the aspects of narcissism that we actually see, but we don't focus on everything else, because this is what we want to see. So we do see it. Now, do I think people are increasingly more self-centered? Yes, and I think social media lends to that. But I do think there's a difference between self-centered and selfish. I think it's perfectly fine to be selfish.
Oh, come on.
I think it's perfectly fine.
It is from a licensed profession, by the way, y'all. This not
I think it's perfectly fine. But I think, because selfish saying that you want to take care of yourself, you're looking after yourself, but self-centered things revolve around you. Now, that's not true. The world does not revolve around you. Everything doesn't revolve. No, you're not the center.
Yeah.
So when I say like, okay, it's okay for me to be, the reason why I say that is that we get so caught up in being strong for others that if we take care of ourselves, we think we're being selfish. No, that's okay though. You can be selfish. Now, to be self-centered is a totally different idea. Now you think the world revolves around you and everybody owes you something, and that's not true either. You know, so I think there's probably more self-centered individuals than I would say for the concept of narcissism. You know, but most people don't use that term because everybody's narcissist, just like everybody has bipolar disorder, but nobody knows what it means. So,
I was about to say that's a buzzword. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Nobody knows what it means.
No, yeah, like they throw it out so, like I said, to the point where it lost its meaning. Like,
yes, if you're moody, people are like, oh, I'm moody, I'm bipolar. No, if you're bipolar, like it's a real struggle.
Yeah.
And I actually do think it's overdiagnosis by professionals. It's overly diagnosed.
Come on
Most
now.
people really don't have the true definition. I've only met in this many years, and I did many years in addiction world too, only maybe 5 real people with bipolar disorder. Only 5. And that is a small number compared to, and people will come to me already with that diagnosis and I don't see it.
oh man.
I don't see it. What I do see though is more PTSD than what's actually diagnosed. I see way more PTSD. Like, way more of that. But people will get a bipolar diagnostic because it's hot. You know? People will get, what's the other one? I see a lot of depression and anxiety, of course. But it's usually bipolar disorder and, borderline personality disorder. Usually women tend to get that. But bipolar disorder and borderlines are usually hot diagnostics for something that reminds me of the color pink. You know, borderline personality disorder is like the color pink. It cannot exist by itself. It's like you have to have red and white. In order to have borderline personality disorder, from my perspective, there's some trauma involved.
Yeah.
So you're reacting to a trauma that you think is happening, but that's not happening. You know, which is usually some form of abandonment or something like that.
I have so many questions. Because, oh my goodness. Because okay, all right. The first question I have for you. Okay. So, I'm a millennial. And I read the article and they say us millennials are more anxious, more dealing with depression, more dealing with all these things that versus our predecessors, which is Generation X and Boomers and all that and so forth. Why do you think that we as a generation are feeling these emotions more evidently than our predecessors, and or are we just more self-aware to be able to process those feelings or whatnot?
So I live in a world where paradoxes. A few years ago, I was really introduced to. I've always known what the word paradox means, but I really started to understand, like, wow, things are much more paradoxical than up in opposition.
You got to break it down.
So
they're like, what's a paradox? I don't know what that
with
is.
a paradox, 2 things can exist at the same time. It's both and. So yeah, I do think your answer is yes and yes. You know? So part of it is you can have everything. Today, right? So, and I'm a Gen Xer, right? So if I, back when I was much younger, if I wanted something to eat, I had to make an effort for it. Like there weren't as many restaurants around, you know, I had to drive to it, or I had to get the ingredients from the grocery store. You know, it's not as instantaneous as it is today. You know, it's not. Everything's instant. And what people don't realize, when too many things are instant, people don't realize wellness isn't. See, I'm used to having to wait for stuff.
Steve, she got it over the head tonight.
Because that's how I was raised. You know, if someone wanted to talk to me and my mom was on the phone, guess what happened? They didn't talk to me.
Right.
Because
you had to wait.
You had to wait. It wasn't there. You know, we didn't have 3-way. There was a wait. You know, and cell phones, you know, all this stuff now, we have instantaneous access. And I actually do tell people, millennials and younger are going to have a harder way in the therapeutic process than everybody else, because they are accustomed to instantaneousness. They're accustomed to having things when they want it.
Yeah.
And people think that's being spoiled. Well, no, that's just a function of the time they were raised in.
Right.
You know, I actually had to, you know, if I wanted to know something, I went to the library, pull out this long thing called the Dewey Decimal System. I had to pull up a card. I had to walk. I ain't got to do none of that today. If I want something, I can instantly have it. And that's a great thing, but it also doesn't teach us process. We don't have to wait for nothing, and that is a problem. That's a real problem. So teaching people delayed gratification I heard this great phrase, and I wish I can say I said it, that discipline is a form of self-love. Because you actually teach yourself to wait.
That's why I love Steve, man. Steve's my brother.
You teach yourself to delay gratification,
Yes.
so you can, because it helps you in so many areas of your life. You can be like, you know what, I can actually wait on that. I don't actually have to have it. But we're so used to getting it when we want it, because that's the function of the world we live in. That is the function, and it's a great thing, but it does have its drawbacks. You know, wellness is the same today as it was 50 years ago. It takes its time. As it was 100 years, it takes time. It don't matter. It don't even matter if you take medication, because people don't realize, they think they're going to take the medication, they're going to feel instantly better. No.
Yeah.
Medications only account for a certain percentage. I think roughly about 30%. You can check me on that number. But it's not just the meds.
Yeah.
You do have to do some change. I call it your default settings. You know, your default setting, mind mapping, another word I use. Your default settings are still your default settings, even if you take medication. It don't matter. You have to actually process and decide, oh, I don't know if these are not the settings I want. I got to have new default settings. You know, when you take your phone and they should change it back to factory reset, that's what people are doing. People are operating to their factory settings, but they don't even know. They don't even know. You know. So my goal is to help people see what their default settings is, and not the avatar that shows up. That's a different thing.
Time out, Billy. You gotta tell, because I'm pretty sure someone like, what's the Avatar? I watched the movie, but I don't know. You know, I didn't know that how to apply in therapy. Explain to me what an Avatar is.
So whenever we get online, right, we got our picture that shows up. We got anything that symbolizes who we are, and it's usually who people want themselves to be. So your avatar, your representative, right, would be another word people use. That's what people present to the world, right? But when we're in a therapeutic process, people start with their avatar. But then, and here's the thing: sometimes you're your avatar to yourself. You don't even know.
Oh, come on now.
And then when you start realizing who you are for real, then you're kind of getting rid of the avatar. You don't have a need for it, which is great. And then you have to work with the mess of kind of who you are, and then work through that. You know, I tell people, it's like, you know, I would every now and then clean out my closets and want to order it some kind of way, color coded or whatever, buy outfit. And so when I'm first doing it, I'm excited. You know, I'm pulling all this stuff. I'm doing this thing. I'm so happy. And then in the middle of it, I'm looking at it going, I don't want to do this. Like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. Like, I got all this stuff here. I got to work through all this. But then I slowly start putting the stuff as I need to do it. And I finally get there. But most people give up when they see all the mess. That's when most people stop. I don't want to do this no more. I don't like this no more. Because this is the messy part, you know. And therapy, I'm going to be honest with you, therapy should hurt. There is pain involved. There is pain. And I tell people, I do not lie to them. I said, this is going to hurt.
Yeah.
There is pain involved. I said, but you know what? Pain is not a bad thing. Suffering is.
Yeah.
Pain is not.
Pain is not.
And my goal is to work with you as you go through pain. Because if you keep avoiding pain, you'll keep needing your avatar. You will keep needing it.
160 episodes. And I've got to say, it's not to me. I love all episodes. Let me just say that. I'm not biased. Let me just say that. But I've got to say, this has been a very impactful episode because, like, and I don't know, because I'm there myself, and I'm seeing for myself, like I said, the avatar. Throw that out the window, and I'm embracing who I am, right? Yes. For the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
Yes.
And just hearing these things you're saying is resonating with me on a whole nother level or whatnot. Like my spirit's like yes, like that. Oh my goodness, like, so no, thank you.
Oh no, and, you know, and even for myself. So as we're in a process of becoming and unbecoming all the time, you know. So, and people don't realize, so there's three things that I say that's happening in the therapeutic process: is what that person is saying and what they're doing. You know, they're verbal and nonverbal, you know, which, by the way, telehealth was kind of messed up a little bit, and I'll talk about that. And then there's the dynamic between me and the person, you know. But then there's also me. Like, there's three things happening. And so if a therapist don't pay attention to this or to this, they're never going to work out what's happening with that person.
Right.
You know, they're never going to get far. And then they'll say, these people are just dropping out of therapy at a certain point. I don't know what's wrong. out on what's happening in a dynamic, or you're missing out on what's happening in yourself. You know, or you're and then you can't interpret properly what's happening in that person. You know, and again, it's that art and science. I'll tell people, well, correct me if I'm wrong. This is kind of what I'm seeing. What do you think about this? You know, I don't tell people this is what it is. You know, I don't do that. You know, I give people the opportunity to play with it and see what they think about what I'm saying. You know, and then sometimes they need to digest it and walk away a little bit, and they come back. You know what? I sat with that. I can see what you're saying. You know. Or maybe I need to look at it from this perspective. And I can take being wrong. Like, okay, I'll take that. You know? Because I have to be able to do that. You know, and the thing to remember, too, when we talk about people want to get into the field, is that I don't wear a cape. I don't rescue people. People rescue themselves. I do not rescue people. You know? And so as a clinician, you think, you hear, oh, you know, I've heard therapists say, oh, it wasn't for me, but it wasn't for you.
Right.
It wasn't. They came to you an hour each week. They got to go home, and they got to live all those other hours without you. So if you get people dependent on you and believing it's you, then that's a problem you got. Now you got some issues to work out because now you got some validation stuff that you need that you shouldn't need. So I only know that because I've done this as a function of teaching it. You know, I've taught a couple of times, and I've heard, oh, if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have worked out, but it really wasn't for you.
Right.
You know, like that's kind of arrogant to think that it was you. It's not. And I tell people, and what I do have to balance that with, I do have to balance it because I had one client, you know, he told me, you know, he stopped the session once. He's like, I got to say something to you. He's like, I just want to thank you. He's like, you don't know, you saved my life. I said, no. I said, I didn't save your life. You saved. He said, no, please let me say this. No. You know, and I had to just sit there and be like, Billy, just take what he's giving you. Like when you take the compliment, and that's difficult for me because I want to push it away as much as possible. No, that's you. He's like, no. If I didn't sit here, he said, you were on. Actually, I remember his exact phrase. He said, you were on the raft telling me to keep growing. He's like, you were there. He's like, the whole time. He's like, so I want to give you that. I want you to know that. So I want to put some balance with it. It's not that you're not part of it at all, but I never want to, I don't want the responsibility of someone's full wellness because then I have to also take the responsibility of their destruction. And I can't do that either. I can't do that either.
Okay, time out. You are man. Listen, all right. I'm gonna be editing this tonight. By the way, guys, I'm only watching myself. Cause this right here, I don't think you know how you be in church. You be like, man, I gotta watch the pastors and packing stuff tonight. This right here is like, it's phenomenal. I hope y'all listening and whatnot. But okay, so I'm gonna talk about Billy the person, not Billy the professional, Billy the person. Let's talk about how you balance being a licensed therapist, but then also like they call it work-life balance. Like, how did you deal with your life outside of being a therapist? Like, how did the weight of being a therapist, not saying affect your life outside of it, but like, how did you balance all those things together?
It does have an effect, honestly, and that's hard. That's really hard to do. I actually need people around me to remind me of things of what I need to do and not do. You know, so what helps me sometimes is, because of kind of how I think, I can make anything a clinical mental health thing, like almost anything. But if I watch physical comedy that is super silly, I can now, nothing about that is clinical to me. I can watch that. Like, people don't realize, like, I'll watch Jim Carrey movies, or I'll watch really bad movies like Sharknado and stuff like that. I can't make that clinical. I can't do nothing with that, and I'm enjoying every minute.
Yeah. No, wow.
I love movies like that because I'm really disconnected.
Yeah.
I'm not,
it's so far away from what you typically would do.
And I'm not processing. Because other than that, I'm like, wow, they're interested. I wonder if they did this. I wonder if she did this, if this. I will always be processing. So I have to do stuff like that to disconnect from it. Simply because if not, I'm always in that mind.
Yeah.
And I don't want to always be there. The other thing, too, I had to learn to do that, especially when my kids were young. They're adults now. Is because they wanted me to hear their problems, too. And I would be like, oh, my God. I just been sitting with this. I don't want to hear this. But I had to create the space. Like, I cannot be so mentally exhausted that by the time I get home to my kids when they were little, that I don't have space for what their issues are. And even as adults, they have issues, you know. So I need to make sure I have space, and they don't want to. And and God bless them. They never like, oh my, we don't want to trouble you with it. Like, no. You're supposed to trouble me with it. You're supposed to. It's good. Don't worry about it. You're supposed to trouble me with it. Like, you're looking at it because you're thinking of what I do. But I'm your mom.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to be able to do this. So I have to create space so I can do that. So there's things I do in my own life. I get up in the morning, I'll do my workout, and I do my Bible study, because I do believe you should live from the inside out, and I can unpack that if you want. So I do those things.
We'll come back to that.
I do those things in order so I can enter somebody else's space as full as I can. Because at one point I used to do like counseling, like straight full time, like 8 hours a day, 12 to 8. Oh, I can't do that no more. I can't do that, because I can't hold that much emotionality and still have time and still have space for myself.
Right.
I had nothing for myself. I was mentally exhausted. I didn't want to talk to people. Like, people come around me. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
Because that's all I did for 8 hours a day. And people don't realize when you're at work, you might work 40 hours, but you really don't work 40 hours. There's some time you have downtime. Your brain gets to, but when I'm sitting in your space, I'm really there. Like, full time, 100%. And I'm not just listening. That's what people don't realize. People are like, oh, you listen to people for a living. Like, no, I don't just listen. I have to listen and process and interpret. And then I have to decide what I'm going to say to you and what I'm going to put in the back burner and give to you later, because I know you're not ready for that. So all that stuff is happening while you're just sitting across from me. You think I'm just listening. I'm not. There is a whole little office space thing that's happening. I have a thing I call the apartment size stove, and I decide what goes in the back burner. Like, oh, that's got to sit back there. Like, I can't. She's not ready for that. We can't talk about that just yet, but I'm gonna put it there. That's valuable. I'm gonna wait. Now, a clinician who's new would talk about that right now.
Right.
And not know that timing is everything. Sometimes I'll know something weeks ahead, but I'm gonna wait, because it's not time. It's not time for that. They're not ready for that. You don't want to hear it. They're not, because it's you have to weigh the relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to weigh if that person can carry that.
But that comes back to the art part.
That's the art part.
That's the art part.
Yes.
Because the signs tell you, all right, attack it right now.
You're right. No, you can't do that to people. You can't. Everybody's not ready for that. And it's all in the timing. It's all in the timing.
It's this song by Tasha Cobb. It's called Gracefully Broken. That, to me, when it illustrates how there's a beauty to being broken.
Yeah.
And just how you just describe how just the art and science to it. Like, that's the type of episode. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry. I'm going to steal. That's the type of episode. But I just love that. And the way you describe, the way you describe your craft is like hearing Michael Jordan talk about Game 6.
Oh, wow. That's such a compliment.
Of the playoffs. Because, like, you hear the passion,
That's a compliment.
the wisdom, and the experience behind what you do. Like, it's very evident how you speak. So, no, like, I'm pretty sure client, and like you said, that, like, I hope you can receive when they're telling you, because I'm not even client, and I can hear, I hear, like, you have a passion, you have a heart for what you do, because I've gone to doctors' office, I've seen nurses, I've seen people in the profession, and you say to yourself, they might be good at what they do, but you can tell they're not passionate about it, or they don't have a grace for it, or whatnot. You have a grace for what you do. So
thank you.
Shout out to you. No, and I do want to talk about that, because how does your relationship with God help you in your craft? Because I feel like that's
huge.
Yeah.
That's huge for a few reasons, because not everybody I work with is Christian, and that's fine too. You know, I'm not here to push that, and I'm okay with that. But I will say it shows up whether I'm doing it or not. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just kind of who I am.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm never gonna say, oh, well, Jesus Christ. I'm never gonna do that.
Yeah.
But what I will do, like in the morning I wake up, when I say I do a Bible study, like, I'll read a chapter, and then I have to read it 3 times on 3 different days and write 3 different reflections on it. And the goal is so I can live from the inside out, where, and I tell this to clients too, but I tell them they have to define certain the spirit part for themselves. Where if you live from the inside out, you live where your spirit informs your emotional space, right? Which informs your psychological space, which helps you navigate the environment. Most people live from the outside in, where what happens to them in the environment impacts them psychologically, which impacts them emotionally, which dampens their spirit. Most people live from the outside in. It's like, you know how the horses have a bit in their mouth? They're just dragged by back and forth by life's experiences and circumstances. A person who lives from the inside out can go through the exact same things as a person who lives from the outside in, and the impact is so different. It's so different.
Man.
And I tell people, and I use like the analogy of a water bed, like back in the 80s, there used to be these terrible water beds. Like if you sit on one side of it, the other side would it was just really, really terrible. But then in the 2000s, they came out with these Tempur-Pedics, right? And they put a glass of wine. They'll put a glass of wine at one end, and they would have a person jumping on the end. They was like, look, no motion transfer. And the difference between those two things is what's in it. Right? So if you are operating from the inside out, I don't care what's happening on the outside of you. It don't matter what's happening on the outside of you.
Come on,
That glass of wine is going to sit right there. It's perfectly fine. But if you living from the outside in, you're going to be that waterbed.
Yeah.
And everything that happens on the waterbed is happening to you. You know. So I am a firm believer of living from the inside out.
Yeah.
It is a task. It is a process. It does require me to slow my thoughts down, and it calls for me to decide how I want to respond to a circumstance. Who do I want to be in this circumstance? You know, or even more importantly, am I operating on what I believe, or am I operating on what I know? And those are not the same thing either. Those are not the same thing.
We're gonna need a part 2. I'm just saying this now because like I feel like we have like just like hit the tip of the iceberg. We haven't even unpacked it. Some of the gems that you have, like you were just, I promise y'all, I'm getting smacked with it, and it's like, man, like I feel like we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg. But I do want to make sure we talk about you as a person, because 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 I mean it's all part of you. But I want the people to get a chance to know you as a person, because they're the reason why people come to see you, you know. And so this is where we had a simple questions, right, of the show. And if anyone watched the podcast, they know I like to ask questions of all our guests, because I feel like these are valid questions to ask, and I like to get their perspective on it all. So, being born and raised in Cleveland, you know we have the stigma of, unfortunately, not coming together, collaborating with each other. What do you feel like we can do to help break that stigma?
Oh my goodness, man, that's a great question. There's something, I don't know if you ever heard of the principle of scarcity. Principle of scarcity is the idea that there's not enough. Yeah. And people live in the principle of scarcity even when there's more than enough. There is more than enough. There's more than enough. But we don't live like that. We don't operate that way. So because we don't operate with that, we think we got to make sure we take. We got to take it. And I got to take it before I tell you about it, because you ain't going to take what's mine. Even when there's more than enough. You know, this one artist was telling me like he was like struggling in the art world trying to get people together, you know, and I was like, well, it's a principle of scarcity. We believe there's not enough, and that's all, and it doesn't matter if it is. We believe it, and belief is strong even when it's false. You know, so we believe it's not enough, so we don't come together because we're too busy trying to take. I used to work in a homeless shelter, right? And there was more than enough food. Actually, they can have seconds and thirds if they want to, but they were still in it. They were still in it. You don't have to steal. There's enough. But it's the principle of scarcity. They didn't believe they were putting their bags on this one because it's just in case. No, but there is more than enough.
More than enough. Ooh.
And so it's that, to me, is a mindset that we struggle with as a community here. It's coming together because of that. And, you know, I know services are really disjointed here, you know. There's stuff that I didn't know existed. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. So maybe the idea of how we present and market it, but that principle of scarcity is so real to me, at least to me. We feel like there's never enough, you know. And the other thing is, there could be more than enough if we actually came together. It would be like an abundance, you know. But we would rather, like, let me protect my little $2 when we could actually have $20 if we all came together. But I just want to make sure, and I'm not going to tell you about where I got this $2, you know. But yeah, it's just, I wish it wasn't, I don't want to speak as if it can never change. I do believe it can, but I do think that it's going to take people willing to struggle with disappointment.
Yeah.
a little bit, because you have to bypass a mindset to me that's been consistent here.
Steve, we had to ask that question, bro. The principle of scarcity. I'll tell you what, that is all right. I'm gonna clip that up, by the way. Okay, all right. I want to get off subject because I feel like I can deviate real quick. But okay, and this I feel like once again this is a question that I feel like is very prevalent also.
Mm-hmm.
I asked a question of legacy. Everyone who knows, I asked a question. I was watching this interview with Nipsey Hussle, and he was talking about the legacy he wanted to leave behind. And unfortunately, we all know he passed away. Mm-hmm. Shout out to his family and him. But he talked about what he wanted to accomplish, and not only did he accomplish it, he exceeded what he said he wanted to do. My question to you: what legacy that you want to leave behind as Billie, but also leave behind as Billie, the professional licensed therapist?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. That's a great question.
I like to ask great questions, you know. I think I do all right with that.
I would say twofold with me personally, you know. So I want to build, so hopefully, not hopefully, in February and March, I'll be able to build this private practice where I'm truly independent, not where I'm like working with an agency, but I'm in private practice, but I'm truly independent. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal. So I'm working on stuff like that. So being able to assist my family being much more financially independent. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. That's more of, I guess, a professional goal. But personal goal is for them to all the generational traumas that has been that I've carried, that my mom's carried, that her mom or my dad, and I want that is that ability to be able to give and receive love in a very clean way is a legacy that I want for them. You know, I want them to be able to navigate through life and be able to give and receive love. You know,
come on,
and it really takes you working through. You know, I asked my kids like a really scary question one day. And I said, I know I've made mistakes. I know I have. You know, I said, so tell me, is there anything that you feel like you want to tell me about something that I've done? And I'm like nervous asking this question. I said, but I want to be able to unpack it and tell you where my head was at the time. You know, I want to be able to do that. By the way. Ooh, it is, because see, parents don't want to say they was wrong. You know,
I said my kid.
Parents don't want to do that. You know, and I will apologize to my kids, and not everybody. And you know, I remember someone said to me, "Wow, you actually apologize to your kids?" I was like, "Well, for sure.
Why not?
For sure." I said, if I made a mistake, you know, I made a mistake. You know, and if I hurt my daughter's feelings, I'm like, "Well, no, tell me what I did." Like, also, no, I didn't. That's not what. So there's intention and impact. Yeah. That was not my intention, but I recognize that was my impact. I recognize that. I'm sorry. That's not my intention. You know? So it is the truth. So the legacy of being able for my kids to be able to critically evaluate information, that's huge to me. Critically evaluate, because I don't think that's something that we do that much anymore.
Yeah.
We don't critically evaluate. We just see information, we accept it as truth.
Right.
You know? So critically evaluate and be able to give and receive love in a very clean way. You know, that's what I really want for them. Like, that is such a big deal for me, because my daughter has 2 little ones. My son doesn't have any kids. He's in the military, but I'm constantly talking to him about mental health stuff. And I am so blessed because both of them talk to me about their personal issues and their relationships, and they share. And that's sometimes I'm like, I'm still your mom. Don't get share with that. Don't tell me that part. I don't want to know that part. I'm still your mom. Like, I really don't want to know that part of your life. You know, like, keep it to yourself. But they share everything, and I recognize that as a gift, because they don't have to tell me nothing for real. They're 22 and 29. You know, they can tell their friends or whoever else, but no, they're like, hey, Mom, I want to talk to you about what's going on between me and such and such, or what do you think about this, or we need a session. That's what
right.
We need a session. And I value that, you know, because I know they don't have to do it.
Right.
They do not have to share it, you know, but I wanted to foster that relationship with them growing up as much as possible.
Oh, man. I'm telling you now, we're going to do a part 2. We're going to make sure to put down the books, because this is such a great interview. And I said about every interview. I'm like, you say about every interview, and I will, because they are all great interviews. But this one just really hit me where, you know what I'm saying, where I need to hear. So, and I do want to make sure I say this was a important question. I feel like the mark of any great interview, any great podcast, any great whatever, there people have takeaways. And you have unpacked it a dump truck of gem tonight.
I'm glad. Thank you.
What do you feel like are 3 takeaways someone should take away from your interview tonight?
Oh wow. Okay. Oh, I didn't say this though. Can I still say it?
No,
anyway?
I'm about to say
Okay.
or mention something that you didn't get a chance to mention.
Okay. That so I know we talk about forgiveness a lot, and people talk about forgiveness, and what that means. But what I've learned it meant is being able to release the debt somebody owes to you, to release the emotional debt. If you don't release that emotional debt, you and that person is held in bondage. You are with them, and you cannot not be with them.
Oh, come on.
If you don't release people from emotional debt, and that's just part of forgiveness. Now, there's another part that you can do. People might not get there because it's a lot harder to do. Is still having compassion for that person, for who they are. It doesn't mean you have to be in a relationship. People think that's what I mean. No. You don't have to give people access. But if I can have compassion, I can see that what you did to me had nothing to do with me, had everything to do with who you are and who you've chosen to be. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that that's the version of you wanted to present to me. But I do have to release. I just recently went through that. I just lost a friend who's been friends with me for 23 years, and it was such a terrible betrayal. But it took me about a couple of months to be able to say, I gotta release it. I gotta release her from the debt, because she by human standards she owes me. By human standards, she owes me. But if I don't release the debt, I'm in prison with her.
Come on now.
Because now every time I even think about, there's this resentment, that there's this pain in my stomach, or if I got to hear her name, or if I got to see her name come across Facebook or Instagram, I'm like, my stomach is tight. When I finally was able to release her of that emotional debt,
that is so good.
I felt free. It don't even matter. I don't have to be in a relationship with her no more. That's cool. But I couldn't just not have the friendship. I also had to release the debt.
The debt.
And that's where we go wrong. We don't release debt. So that's one. And number 2 is also releasing the debt for yourself on stuff that you've done that you can't fix. You can't fix. I had to, I grew up, I had a tumultuous story, my background. And so promises was a big thing for me. When I make a promise, I'm going to keep a promise because of my backstory. Is the reason why I feel like I like that. So I've broken maybe about 5 or 6 promises in my entire life. So when I say I promise, like my kids know that's a real thing, But when I haven't done it, even now, every now and then I'll go back in my head going, man, I really messed that up. Like, man, I should have done this. I should have done that. But I know where that really comes from, because that means I'm really operating on some old trauma of what somebody didn't keep to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my goodness.
That's what I'm really dealing with. And so if I don't release myself and give myself some level of grace, no, you're not going to be good all the time, Billy.
Yeah.
You're really going to mess up. Like, and the word I use is like, you're really going to fail sometime. I have to say that word. I have to say that word. You're going to fail. And I have to get used to saying it, because it's hard to fail.
Yeah.
It's hard to fail.
It's even harder to fail and accept it, though. Ooh.
Yep. And so the third thing is for me is respecting process over outcome, and not knowing that outcome lives in the process. That's what I mean by paradox. You know what I mean? Like, respect process over outcome, because the outcome really does live in the process.
Yeah.
You cannot. Somebody can sit up here and give me a basketball all day. I'm not LeBron, and it's not going to happen. It's not. But there's a whole process people have to, when I think about when certain athletes, when I hear Kobe Bryant and stuff he said, when I heard Mike Tyson and stuff he says, they always say, fall in love with the process. Even when you don't want to do it, even when it don't feel good, because everything don't have to feel good for real.
Right.
And that's where we go wrong. We think it has to feel good for us to do it. No, it ain't got to feel good. Wellness don't feel good all the time. Actually, wellness is violent. It's like a seed. It has to burst through in order to grow and take root. It can be violent. And just recognize that those 3 things, like grace for self, releasing the debt to self, releasing the debt to others, and respecting process over outcome. Those would be my 3 things.
I'll be Eric Clapton in the interview. That is a new one. Listen. So part 2.
Yes.
We gonna make sure we schedule that.
Sure.
And then I feel like this is the most important question. Someone's like, I gotta know, where can the people reach you? They want to just get in contact. They want to book you for like to come speak, whatever. Where can people learn more about you?
Oh yeah. So I do have Instagram and Facebook. So for Instagram, it's mentally_Billy. I think that's what it is. For Facebook, it's just my name, Billie Gilliam. And my email is actually billiegilliam@gmail.com. You know, and I don't have a problem getting out my number. It's my professional number. It's 216-339-6682.
And for all those who are lazy, I will have it in the show notes, so you gotta go look in. You're like, well, I gotta rewind it back. It'll be in the show notes, so there's no be in there. But I gotta tell you, like I said, I'm not being biased. I love everyone who's come on and graced our platform. Really, I do. I'm not. Don't take this the wrong way. But I gotta say, maybe I needed this. Maybe I just like, man, this is hit me tonight. Cause I've had a day today. But I gotta say, this has been a great interview, and I can't thank you enough for coming.
Allowing me on, I appreciate it.
No, listen. We gotta have you back. But yeah, I can't thank you enough. So listen, this has been a great interview.
Thank you.
Like they say, we gotta pay some bills, right? And by paying bills, we gotta talk about a couple things, guys. One thing I do want to talk about is this back. Quarter 1, we are the pull-up experience. Y'all have been rocking with us. Y'all have been watching our episode. This is episode 160, by the way. So the 160 episodes, you could say we have done we have done the process of learning how to create a podcast. And what we're doing now is that we're now showing you how to create yours. So whether if you're a realtor, if you're a hairstylist, if you are a person that likes to flip coins, whatever you have a passion for, we believe having a podcast can help you grow your brand, your business, and your influence all in one fell swoop. And why you edit? Why not make money? So we are now offering one-on-one training on how to do that. A 5-week course that we put together that will help you. Yes, you, the person right now watching, because I believe, just like back in the day when having a website was essential for your business, and then later on with social media, I believe podcasting is now the wave. Not even the wave, is the future of differing yourself between you and the next person in your same industry. So listen, that will be also in the show notes. So we'll schedule that today. Also, what else we have going on, Steve? I can't remember now. We got so many things going on. Just be on the lookout for anything we got going on, guys. We'll have it. But we want to thank you. I never want to end the episode without thanking you, the person who was watching this and also listening to this, because you have taken the time out to be with us with this passion, love, with this podcast, and listen to great people like Billie.
Thank you.
And Steve doing this thing. Steve is my man. Steve is my boy. You know what I'm saying? He's the greatest in the game. And it's just great people like you who come and watch every week that let us know we're not doing this just to be doing this, because you guys show us every week. You guys are watching, you guys are sharing. You guys, we're almost 8,000 subscribers. I don't think you understand how crazy that is.
That's great.
We're in this is year 2, right, Steve? 2 and some change. But I've been doing all this research, and what we have accomplished thus far and what we're still accomplishing is not something we take for granted. So we want to just thank you guys. On behalf of the team, I'm saying we want to thank you. So without further ado, this is episode 160, and we have Miss Billie, who just hitting us over the head with just these gems. I thank her, and we'll see y'all next week, okay? Peace.
Thank you.